Hello, everyone. My name is Kelly Bailey, and I'm the Social Emotional Learning Specialist for the Maine Department of Education. And I'm so delighted to be able to provide for you this brief summary of SEL. I know that each of you are working to help support the MOOSE remote learning asynchronous learning platform. And so it's my pleasure to be able to provide this mini training to support your work in creating those modules and embedding into the modules social emotional learning for pre-K through 12th grade students. So I wanted to start really by just giving an overview about what social emotional learning is, and to talk about the concept of emotional intelligence. And this came about really in 1995 when Dr. Daniel Goldman first really started to use the word emotional, or EQ. And Aristotle talked about this even much before Dr. Goldman. However, just thinking about it from the perspective of we're educating the mind and the heart, and educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And really that sums it up. Aristotle summed it up beautifully way back when. I'm sure many of you have heard of CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning. And CASEL defines SEL for education as really the process for which children and adults understand and manage your emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy and compassion and understanding for other human beings, are able to have trust and form positive, healthy relationships with themselves and with other people, and really to be able to use and make responsible decisions. We ask students to do this every single day, and now more than ever, urgency is something that we need to be mindful of and help students and educators really take a minute to assess, how am I feeling right in this moment, and is my brain ready to learn? So the first level of SEL, and there are 5 core competencies, is called self-awareness. And the Maine Department of Education and CASEL is looking to make sure that we're really teaching self-awareness through an equity lens. What we're talking about here is examining the importance of how I feel in various social and the how I feel when I'm communicating with other human beings throughout a diverse group of cultures and climates, really making positive social identities and really grounding and affirming our heritage and the heritage of other people. So how am I feeling? Where does that feeling live in my body? Is my body and my brain ready to learn? And can I do that through the context of self and others? That means we have to have a very accurate self-perception. I know and I am realistic about my strengths and my limitations. I do not see my limitations as faults and identify with them as mistakes. I encourage and tell other people how my actions have affected them, and I know my own needs, biases, and values, and how that impacts the behaviors. Understanding that emotion will drive our attention, and our attention will drive our learning. One of the things that we're really looking to do in these modules, in the MOOSE module, is to make sure that we have plenty of opportunity for students to learn about accurate self-perception. This is about building self-confidence. I believe I have what it takes to influence my own destiny and lead others effectively. I feel confident that I can handle whatever comes my way in a self-assured, calming, and relaxed way. I have some optimism. I believe that most experience will help me learn and grow, and I can see the positive even in negative situations or perceived negative situations. So building into your MOOSE modules, self-awareness. How am I feeling before I start reading, before I start math, a pre-learning activity? And I want you to know that I've put together a pre-K through 12th grade self-awareness, grade appropriate, age appropriate resource for you, and that's on the MOOSE up on the MOOSE supports resource page. We need to also talk about self-management, and this is so important for you to really think about and embed into your MOOSE modules. So beginning with the definition of what is self-management. It's my ability to navigate and shift through my thoughts and my feelings and my behaviors and have healthy ways to calm myself down. And so thinking about self-awareness, helping students understand who they are and how they're feeling, and how that feeling will either impact or take away from what they're going to be experiencing in the modules. And also asking themselves, is my body ready to learn? Do I need a break? Do I need some water? Do I need to do a yoga? Do I need to do a go noodle? So just thinking about embedding motor breaks, a sensory motor approach to, brain-based sensory motor approach, and experiential learning, embedding those things in. And again, I have a ton of self-management movement breaks that you can embed, and make sure that you're doing that time for a break, and make sure that you do it in a way that allows agency for all students. So don't just think about that we're going to do a breathing break or a yoga break. Give them options of their break, because they should learn to know, what is it that I need when I need it. So it's really important for them to learn this. And the reason that we do this is because we're looking for congruence in the sensory system, right? So in our central nervous system, we have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. And what we're looking for is, when students and when human beings are under a lot of stress, then one system kind of quiets and the other system alerts. And that's because of our amygdala and danger and the neurochemistry that supports that. So thinking about the sympathetic system as, the fight flight, and the parasympathetic system as, as calm. So when we're calm and regulated in our body, our heart, and our brain, we can work optimally, and we can respond to the modules and the teaching opportunities and learning. Parasympathetic nervous system is online. But when we're upset or dysregulated, our body, heart, and our brain cannot work optimally and will react. And that's because the sympathetic nervous system has taken over, and the stress hormones, cortisol, norepinephrine, and adrenaline are taking over. And so the amygdala is in charge, and we will go into fight, flight, freeze, submit, rather than the central nervous system, which is this part of the brain. So it's lid flipping, right? Dr. Daniel Siegel's lid flipping. When we want students, when they're looking at their modules and home working remotely, to be in this calm place. But if they aren't feeling supported, or if they're feeling overwhelmed by the amount of information that they see, or lack of support, and remember, we have to be thinking about this through an equity lens. Maybe not all students are going to have, and it's a given that not all students are going to have the support in the home to do these sorts of things, and or the materials to do them, or the internet access to do them. So we're going to be mindful about not putting more stress in the modules. So thinking about, how many words do you have on your page? Is it visually overwhelming for students? What is the font? Can little students see it and understand it? Can their parents do that? So I just wanted to do a real quick back to basics about the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. So thinking about the prefrontal cortex again here, when this is activated through serotonin and dopamine, then we can function with empathy and insight. We respond instead of react. We have emotional regulation, or we have the access to emotional regulation. We can tap into intuition and attunement, and we can modulate fear. But if we're in a fight, flight, freeze, submit, and the limbic system takes over, the amygdala, whose only job is to react and keep you safe, and remember, students who are in survival mode anyhow, who may, have a history of trauma, or are, they're in a home that is not supportive, and they're around trauma, they're going to be in perpetual fight, flight, freeze. So this is incredibly important to recognize, and asking students right on their, in their module, am I ready to learn? Think about your heart. Is your heart beating slow or fast? Are you thirsty? Does your body need to move before we do this math or reading or writing? That sort of thing, helping them become more attuned to the body, the heart, and the mind. So self-regulating our own emotions, we've recognized the emotional map. And when we do that, we help to provide students with a framework for understanding their emotions and the emotions of other human beings. So before we can ask them to work on a social studies or social skills or cultural responsiveness unit, we really need to build that up and help them understand who they are as human beings. And so that means being present. So building in any mindful practices is a great thing. So mindful seeing, mindful hearing, mindful moving, taking a mindful safari. I have a ton of those resources also for you in the SEL mindfulness resource pack. Impulse control is also part of self-management. It's our ability to pursue important over urgent. Do I think before I act? Do I think before I speak? Where are my emotions? Am I running high? Am I running low? You know, what part of my brain is in charge right now? Part of our self-management is the ability to delay gratification. So building in any part of your modules for delay for gratification, helping students to be present in their lives instead of, I will be able to do this when, or if I had that, I would do it. So we're talking about present moment awareness. So building in a mindful moment here and there is really good for all students. And also within self-regulation, we're talking about the ability to cope. Emotional regulation really is about adaptation of responses to anxiety and worry and fear. So we have to take and make time to seek support, talking about, making sure students aren't turning to maladaptive coping. So this would be for older students, 5th grade, 6th grade, and middle school and high school, having them think about what their coping strategies are and building in to your modules coping. How are you coping with this? Or even if there's something that maybe brings up something big for them, making sure there's a module or a component to your module that allows them to think, what are the coping strategies? Social awareness is another big area of our SEL, and this is really about human understanding of how one's own behaviors in various social situations vary, and how we pick up the environmental cues and how we react or respond to other human beings. Social awareness and equity is really about equity elaborations, discernment of the importance of diversity, understanding the meaning of diversity in context, recognizing cultural demands, and really having the ability to empathize, have compassion, and perspective taking for other human beings. So please build into your modules some having self-compassion, self-forgiveness, having empathy for for yourself, having opportunities to practice forgiveness, to practice knowing what compassion is, and the difference between compassion and sympathy. There were some really great modules this past the beginning of the year for youngers, and I have a ton of resources for compassion and care, but please begin with the self and then move towards other people. And make sure when we're working on with middle and high school students and you're building these modules for social awareness and for younger students, please use real people and make sure that those people are a great representation of people, of all people. So developing social awareness through an equity lens, what does that look like? Perspective taking, again, this is a necessary skill for all human beings to develop really healthy social awareness, the appreciation and understanding of diversity, respect for all human beings, and perspective taking is a really big one. I'm going to attempt to show this video. Not sure it will let me. It's a quick one. It's called Under the Surface. It's an empathy film. I think it's incredibly powerful for middle and high school students, especially if you were to embed that into your culturally responsive slides. That would be a great way for you to look at that. Another thing that is super important for us, especially with middle and high school students, is to really help them understand and investigate their own implicit biases and what that's like and what that is. Implicit bias is really a universal phenomenon. It's not limited to race or gender or even country of origin. There's a implicit bias test that you can take through Harvard, and it's very, very eye-opening. I would encourage anyone, any educator that's working on these MOOSE modules, to take it for yourself, because it's a very powerful tool to help you then embed an understanding of biases in our students, especially our, like I said, middle and high school students. And really helping students to appreciate diversity and teach this skill to the self and to our students. So remembering to really embed diversity into your units. The fourth competency in social emotional learning is relationships, and it can be defined, Castle defines it as a state of being, and healthy relationship skills can really be contingent upon the human capacity to establish and maintain healthy and rewarding connections to other people or groups of people. And that means we have to, again, unpack our fear about people, sorry, that's the commissioner asking me a question. So we're not really putting a whole lot of emphasis on relationships because students are home and they're doing an asynchronous learning module, but we could be mindful about embedding some stuff into your modules about having a healthy relationship. That would mean self-care. So do you need something to eat? Do you need to take a walk? How are you doing with taking care of yourself? And then the fifth competency is responsibility. It really requires cognitive regulation. And this means we have to be thinking about our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's thinking and responsible for executive functioning. So embedding some things about learning about your brain and helping students know that when they're here, they're using their prefrontal cortex and can do big work and make responsible decisions because the neurochemistry supports that. But if they're offline and they're stressed, then they will not be able to do their work, and it might be the easiest set of instructions. So if we don't help students understand their stress, if we do that, then they're going to be able to utilize the asynchronous learning modules far better than they would if they were left without. Just remember that this is a very uncertain, unprecedented time for themselves, and the circumstances for which they are learning is not how they've been learning for most of them. So thinking about attention, building, and mindful practices is really what we're looking at. So how do we do this remotely? Intentional breaks, teach about the brain, embed some mindful movement, teach empathy and compassion and self-care. Again, I have put together an entire list. I hope that that's helpful. I hope this little tutorial has been helpful. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me with any questions or concerns, or talk to your content area specialist, and they can get messages to me. So thank you so much for being willing to be part of this project and to build these asynchronous learning modules and to embed social emotional learning. Be thinking about on purpose, self-awareness, self-management, and social awareness, helping kids, all children, all human beings, build bigger awareness of who they are in the world and helping them to develop that growth mindset and that resilience to do this big work. Thank you so much. I appreciate you and all that you do, and your students do too. Thank you. And stop.